Hey everybody, Craig Hester here with R2AWatches.com, the Detente Watch Group, Ramses Watches, and this show, Keep Watching. I'm trying to even add more things to that list, but everybody around here tells me that adding Schmuckhead probably wouldn't be a good idea. Anyway, I am back. I'm front too. And this is the first show we've done in a while that is an actual show and not me just telling you about something that we're going to show after I get through talking. And a lot of that's because I've been traveling and because of the Kickstarter campaign, which is about to come to a close on the Berlin Wall Signature Edition, Fall of the Berlin Wall Signature Edition watch. Anyway, so if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure and hit like and subscribe. If you're watching it on Facebook, be sure and like the page, r2awatches.com, because that's where we load this on Facebook. So now that those particulars are out of the way, let me mention that I am back from a very successful and enjoyable trip. Went to Berlin with Tim Temple and with Martin Radkai, where we went to the East Side Gallery, which is where the graffiti that is on the Fall of the Berlin Wall watch is, where we met with Connie Alavi, who is the executive director of that, the largest outdoor museum in the world, actually. Or open air, if you want to use that phrase, the largest open air museum in the world, which is the still standing rebuilt parts of the Berlin Wall that a number of artists, about 100 and something artists from around the world, came together in 1990 to put new graffiti on to memorialize the graffiti that had covered almost all of the western side. And they are getting a portion of the proceeds from the Fall of the Berlin Wall watch. That is on Kickstarter. Just type in Pramsius or type in Berlin Wall watch. One of those things are going to lead you to it if you haven't pledged yet or become a backer for the Berlin Wall watch. And if you want to get it at the best price that you're going to get it at, now's the time to do it. So we also went to the Brandenburg Gate. We went to Checkpoint Charlie. We got a lot of great video. I've been posting those on Facebook if you haven't been following us there. They're all on Vimeo now, and I'm going to be putting them on YouTube, and they are on the Kickstarter campaign. So you can see videos of yours truly talking about the existing parts of the Berlin Wall at the East Side Gallery, talking about the Brandenburg Gate, and so forth. So we hope you can join the campaign there. But that's not the main thing to talk about today. We're going to try to get back into doing normal shows, although not much in my life as ever would be considered normal. I will do a 1-minute commercial for those of you who don't know what this watch is all about. Let me here, I'll show it up close. This is the Fall of the Berlin Wall watch by Pramsius, which is our brand. Has actual pieces of the Berlin Wall in the crown. The graffiti is from the East Side Gallery. We have a 42 millimeter and a 48 millimeter. It has a marble dial. It is an automatic mechanical watch with these pre-aged plating or distressed plating. And there's a lot more about this watch that I could talk about, but it is on Kickstarter, so go check it out on Kickstarter, or you can go to Pramsius.com and find out more information there. It's Pramzius, Pramsius, which is named for the Baltic ruler of time. Okay, so today we are talking about a Vostok-Europe, and we are talking about a handful of 24-hour automatic mechanical watches from Sturmanskie. If you were following, I also went to Basel. That went from Berlin to Basel. I actually went from Moscow to Berlin to Basel. I can actually now say that I spent a week in Moscow one night because I got stuck there overnight because of a canceled flight. And that's a whole other story that maybe we'll do a video just on that someday. Basel World, the largest watch fair in the world, which by the way was smaller this year. I'm really into air quotes in this particular episode. Anyway, Basel was smaller just a few days ago. They reduced it by quite a number of vendors weren't there, and they reduced the number of days. But I got to tell you, and I've kind of gotten the same feedback from other people, the compacting of it seemed to actually have a real positive impact because the place actually had the vibe and feel that it did, a few years ago. It was busy the whole time. There were a lot of people there, it seemed like. Maybe more people came in because it wasn't as long. The fact that there weren't as many buildings, of course, then kind of forced people into tighter places. I will tell you that Igor Zavosky, the managing director of Vostok-Europe, told all of us distributors that it was one of the most, if not the most successful Basels he's ever had. He had fantastic meetings with all of his existing distributors. They gained several new customers while they were there. I will tell you, I barely had any time with him because he was so busy throughout the entire show. So at least for Vostok-Europe, it was definitely a good show. Volmax, actually, Aviator and Sturmanskie, they decided to not actually be in the Basel Show, which I will tell you, it is extremely expensive to be there. They were in a hotel like right across the street from the show, and it seemed like every time I was in their booth that they were busy and they had a lot of people in there. So that's Aviator and Sturmanskie. So hopefully, they had a good show as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. It seems like trade shows are kind of starting to die, and I think some of that is because of how much you can do on the internet. But I will tell you that personally, I like them. I still think that there's no replacement for face-to-face meetings with people, for shaking hands. We have just as an example, we have a dinner every year. Vostok-Europe hosts a wonderful dinner every year at a local restaurant there. And I bring in a lot of the people who work with us. And one of our retailers is Touch of Modern, if you don't know that. And two of the guys came in from Touch of Modern, and we really had, it was a time to sit down and talk, and we came up with some really great ideas. We're going to do some specialty items that are only going to be for Touch of Modern. And those are the kind of things that, they don't really happen over emails and phone calls like they do in face-to-face. So I'm still a fan of face-to-face. I hope Basel doesn't go anywhere. And we will be at JCK again this year as well. But I do understand that the internet is changing that and has changed it over the years. Anyway, enough about that. Today we are going to be talking about two watches. One of them is one that we have a very good stock on, so I'm going to tell you right now, if you're interested in this watch, you want to go to r2awatches.com and sign up for our newsletter. And also right now, they are available at talkaboutwatches.com. And it's a special deal that we've got going on that includes, this is the N1 Rocket I like interrupting myself, by the way. This is the N1 Rocket from Vostok-Europe. This is the 6S21 chronograph version. Right now, you can get it with the bracelet and this really neon-y, nobody from 2 or 3 blocks over will miss that you're wearing this watch. Green silicone strap that will come with it, and there's a special deal at talkaboutwatches.com, or you can sign up at r2awatches.com, and we will be you'll get a notification about this deal. So what is really cool about this watch? Well, the N1 Rocket is one of the oldest or earliest Vostok-Europe's ever. It was one of the first design watches that Vostok-Europe came out with now some 13, 14 odd years ago. It is named for and designed after the world's largest rocket, which is the N1 rocket, which was actually intended to put a cosmonaut on the moon. We all know that didn't happen, but that didn't mean that they didn't build a pretty massive rocket in the process. It's changed a lot over the years. The basic case design hasn't changed, but the size has changed. Certainly the difference in movements that they're using in the watch and so forth has changed over the years. This one it has the green accents. It has the 6S21 Neota quartz chronograph movement, which, by the way, does have it's a jeweled quartz movement. It does have mechanical parts, and you can see how the second hand, once you activate the chronograph, actually sweeps quite similarly to how a mechanical watch works. And that is because of the nature of, I love the way it resets, just that slow, smooth back. It's like a Barry White album. It just slowly and smoothly goes back. Anyway, so I say this all the time. There are people who don't like quartz, and I understand that. There are people who are mechanical only, which, by the way, if you're mechanical only, we will be talking about Sturmanskie in just a minute. But I have learned over the years, and it's funny, people call me a watch expert. Wow. No, I know watch experts. Mike Davis, by the way, is a watch expert. Stan Batesh with Deep Blue, he's a watch expert. I'm just a guy who turned a hobby into a business. But nevertheless, I've learned over the years that, there are quartz movements and there are quartz movements. Yes, if you're talking about your basic 3-hand quartz, Okay, I can get the argument there, but when you're talking about a quartz movement like this, like the 6S21 by Miyota, you're talking about a real high-end, high-quality movement that has mechanical parts, that has jewels, that actually is, in a lot of ways, behaves like a mechanical movement, but is battery-operated. And it's the same for several others that Vostok-Europe uses. You're never going to see them do a three-hand quartz. You're just not going to see them do it. They're always going to use the higher end. And one of the things that I like to point out about the 6S21, and this is an absolute fact, guys, the most common movement used today, and this is mostly because the Swiss, contracted the ETA contracted what they were going to put into the marketplace, and folks had to go find an alternative. And the main alternative they found, as you all know, is the NH35, which is a ubiquitous movement. We used it in the Fall of the Berlin Wall watch. It is a bulletproof movement. I think we don't get any more than maybe 2% defects out of it. It is a fantastic automatic movement. It costs less than the 6S21 just by the movement. I'm just talking about the movement itself. I'm not talking about the watch. So anyway, I am not trying to proselytize to the mechanical only people to buy a quartz. I am trying to say to everyone who may be thinking about it that if you're going to pick up a quartz, you can't go wrong with a quartz that's in a Vostok-Europe. So some other things about this watch. It is a 46 millimeter. Yes, it's a 46 millimeter, kind of a nice Goldilocks size, not too big, not too small. It does have the unidirectional rotating bezel. Like almost all Vostok-Europes, this is 220 ATM or 200 meter water resistant watch, which makes it a professional dive quality watch. That just means that the Divers Association, and I'm not a diver, certainly that, if you want to talk about anything I know less about, it certainly would be diving. But so anyway, I do know that there's a diving organization that has several different specifications that they say make a watch a professional grade dive watch. One of them has to have the unidirectional rotating bezel, and it has to have at least 20 ATM, which is a fairly new thing, actually. It wasn't that many years ago that 10 ATM was a fairly serious water watch. But and I don't really go into these kind of things that often, but for those of you who are not really that familiar with what those terms mean, 20 ATM means 20 atmospheres. And then that equates to 200 meters and whatever that is in feet. I think it's like 698 feet. That does not necessarily mean, first of all, 200 meters down. I know enough about diving to know that that's a big deal. Okay, you're not just going to be doing casual diving 200 meters down in the ocean. The really important one, and that's why I tend to focus on when I'm talking about water resistance, I tend to focus on the ATM designation, 10 ATM, 5 ATM, 20 ATM, is the atmospheres, which what that's talking about is the pressure that the watch can handle. And that's pressure from anything, water, air, whatever pressure situation you would have the watch in. That's the how much the watch can handle, the seals on the watch, the crystal and everything can handle from outside pressure. There are very different things that affect water resistance. Okay, I always tell people, I hear people complaining about how my watch is 20 ATM and I wore it in the shower and it lost a seal. I can't believe that just wearing my watch in the shower. Well, actually, one of the worst things you can do with any watch is wear it in the shower, even if it is a high ATM watch, a professional grade. Why is that? Well, because when you're in a shower, there's constant changes of temperature. There's constant changes of barometric pressure in there. When you move around and you bump the shower curtain and it opens up a little bit. You know how like you're in the shower, you open it up and that air rushes in and you feel that cold rush of air or whatever. Well, that's constantly changing the barometric pressure in there. So that actually is worse on the seals of the watch than if you actually took it deep diving, because it's constantly causing this contraction and expansion on the seal points that are in the watch. If you go off a high dive, okay, let's say you dive off, or let's go crazy. Let's go the guys who do the cliff diving, and they're going to dive, 100 meters down to the water. If they're wearing a watch and when they hit the water like that, it could be a high-end dive watch and lose the seal because of the fact that it did that immediate impact on the water. Water resistance is designed for a gradual increase in pressure on the watch. That's what the design system is for in a watch. So I don't know, 10 ATM, 10 atmospheres, 5 ATM, 5 atmospheres. If it's 3 ATM, you're definitely talking about just a dress watch. You just can wash your hands maybe, and that's about it. 5 ATM, you could actually submerge. You could go swimming. I've gone swimming with a 5 ATM watch. I wouldn't do much more than that. 10 ATM, really, you could dive with a 10 ATM. And anybody who tells you can't, that's really not true. You can. I mean, you can't do like saturation diving, or, you're not going to go down and see, some deep wreck off of the coast of Florida or something. But you can dive with 10 ATM. When you get into 20 or above, you're talking about a serious dive watch. Anyway, the other big thing on this one is the bracelet. If there's one thing that Vostok-Europe knows how to do, by the way, I should do this. I guess I should do this always. I should have done this about 10 minutes ago. Vostok-Europe's based in Vilnius, Lithuania. They are a boutique watch brand. We've been doing business with them for now 13 some odd years. We were their third distributor in the world, actually. Every watch is designed in Vilnius, Lithuania by in-house designers, and every watch is hand-assembled there by a team of 7 watchmakers. Every watch goes through a 28-point inspection process before being shipped out to one of their 33 distributors around the world. Can you tell I've said that a few times over the years? So, anyway, one of the things definitely Vostok-Europe knows how to do is a bracelet, and this is a beauty. This is a 7 individual link integrated bracelet that goes with this watch. The bracelet alone, I mean, I don't drop names of other brands, you guys know that, but I will tell you that there are some Swiss brands that are known for their bracelets. They even have the name of the watch is about the name of the bracelet, and I think you guys can figure out who I'm talking about. I can tell you right now, I've held those watches in my hand. I've worn those watches. Those bracelets are no better made than the bracelets that Vostok-Europe puts on their watches. These are phenomenal. Just look at the thickness on that. That is a 4, my focus is terrible on that. Let me see if I can get it better. Oh, anyway, for whatever reason, it doesn't want to focus on that. But anyway, it's a 4 millimeter thick bracelet. That's just crazy, and I really love how this thing picks up the light so beautifully, because it has, the bracelet actually has both matte and polished finishes on it. Now you think about that. Each one of these individual little links has to be done like that. They have to, for that to work, every one of them has to have a process going through where the PVD is done matte on a portion of it and is done with the polished on a portion of it to give you that really great look. Vostok-Europe definitely gives you a generous bracelet. If you're a big guy, I'll put it this way. It's been very rare ever since, it used to be in the beginning when Vostok-Europe first started. They were like a lot of brands and they didn't really have very generous bracelets. And mostly that's because, Europeans don't tend to have as big wrists as we do here in America. So that did happen in the beginning, but I can tell you it has been years, 1 or 2 guys a year, and that's a guy who calls me up and says, I have a 9.5 inch wrist, that might ask for an extra link. The chances of you needing an extra link in this, even if you have a fairly big wrist, are pretty slim. First of all, you're talking about a fairly good sized watch to begin with. The lug, I don't know what the lug to lug on this is, but it's got to be in the 50s. Okay. And then you add in this extremely generous bracelet, you are more than likely going to be removing links and not needing to get additional links from us. It is the double deployant, and that is deployant, not deployment. The word is deployant clasp, which I like that because it gives you that smooth look. Now, if you're somebody who really likes that overlap, the safety clasp style in a sport watch, that's not the case here. You are going to get that more smooth look. But you can see, it holds. So, surgical grade stainless steel, grade A PVD plating, Unidirectional rotating bezel. What am I leaving out? The subdials on this one are obviously that's another thing to point out for those of you who may not be familiar with this. If you don't know what a chronograph does, I assume most of the people watching me are pretty familiar with basics of watches, but I'll mention it. A chronograph is an elapsed time measurement. You can see when I push the button, it starts and it's going to measure up to 60 minutes on the subdial, but your actual ongoing seconds hand is one of the subdials. And we have had, it has happened, somebody's a newbie to watches and they get a chronograph from us and they call us up and they say, why isn't the second hand working? Or, what's wrong with my watch? And they don't understand that, the second hand is actually the subdial, and the main second hand, or what we would call the long sweep, or whatever terminology you prefer, is actually for the chronograph. So again, this is available right now at talkaboutwatches.com. We've got it at r2awatches.com. Right now you can get the green silicone strap. So you want to check out that deal and get these because, just because it's a really cool watch. So I am going to move on. I think I hit all the highlights on this one, and I prattled on about enough there. I'm going to move on to the Sturmanskie 24-hour watch. I talked about this in a video last year from Basel and when I was there this past year. We recently got these in. These are the latest 24-hour models from Sturmanskie. I almost said Vostok-Europe because I've been saying Vostok-Europe over and over and over again during this show. There are 4 dials. There is this beige with the stainless. There's this really cool, and I know I won't get it, but it's got like almost it's not a sun ray, because that would obviously be emanating out from the center. It's like striations that run down the dial. It's really cool, and I'm sure I'm nowhere near. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see it there. These really cool lines that break up the dial. Here you've got the beige in the black. Come on, focus. There you go. And then we have the rose tone with the lighter white colored dial. So what's the deal with this? What's the dealio? Well, first of all, wow, am I going back to what year was that? I realized something the other day, by the way. I know I'm getting older because I remember I used to think everybody I talked to on the phone was older than I was. Now I realize that I think everybody I talk to on the phone is younger than I am. And that may not even necessarily be the case, but I know that that's really just a psychological change that's happened in recent history. And may have something to do with some of the people I'm doing business with as well. So the 24-hour models from Sturmanskie. Sturmanskie, the first watch in space on the wrist of Yuri Gagarin, the first human to enter space. He was wearing a Sturmanskie on his wrist. This does not come from the Gagarin collection. This is actually from the Arctic collection, which is celebrating a number of things that the Russians did as they went to the Arctic. The Arctica actually was the first icebreaker to make it to the North Pole, and that was a Russian icebreaker. So this is celebrating what they've done at the poles. But nevertheless, I always like to point out that the story of this brand, the main thing around this brand is the story of it being the first watch in space, which was one on the wrist of Mr. Gagarin. Now, there are many other things about Sturmanskie. Sturmanskie means navigator in Russian. They're also known for their nautical watches, and so this is tied to that history. They are one of the few brands left in the world that is still regularly producing 24-hour automatic mechanical watches. And when I say 24-hour, I want to be clear. This is a true military timepiece, okay, in that the hour hand only goes around once every 24 hours, as opposed to a regular or normal or whatever you think it should be called, 12 and 12, it's broken up into two 12-hour cycles. The hour hand actually goes around twice in a 24-hour period. This goes around once. So you have to be comfortable with GMT or military timekeeping if you're going to wear this watch. the reason that I tell people that you really want one of these in your collection if you don't have one, first of all, they're just guys and gals, who really love 24-hour watches. They are cool. They're different. They're people whose profession, it makes sense. If you work in a casino, they are always on a 24-hour clock. I understand people in the medical profession that's going to be on a 24-hour clock. So it may actually be a really good fit for you as something that you're using as a part of your work and so forth. Obviously, if you're in the military, there you go. But there's not a lot of automatic mechanical 24-hour movements still produced. And the ones that are really expensive. I mean, if you go and compare this to if you find any kind of Swiss version of a 24-hour automatic mechanical watch, you're going to be paying many, many multiples of what you're going to find this listed for at r2awatches.com. So it's affordable, it's different, it's interesting. The movement is actually made by Vostok of Chisibil, Russia, so it is a Russian movement. And again, these are hand assembled in Moscow. So this is the 2431 automatic mechanical 24-hour movement. This is, I should have looked beforehand. I think it's a 42. It may even be a 40. It's a 40 or a 42. You can look at R2A watches and find out. And I got to start keeping a caliper here with me so that when I realize that I didn't do my homework on all the specifications, that I can measure it here and tell you exactly. Anyway, not a big watch. This is a smaller watch by today's standards. So if you like that, if you want something that's a little more in the traditional sizing, you're going to get that here with the Sturmanskie 24-hour. So this has been longer than my shows usually go. These, by the way, I'm not even sure we have them listed yet on r2awatches.com. If we don't, they're going to be right away. This has been a little longer than my shows normally been. First of all, I have been out of the country. I haven't done a show in a while. And apparently, I felt like really talking a lot today. But nevertheless, we are back. We're going to be here in this time slot, starting at 10 o'clock every Thursday again, unless you hear from me otherwise. And what's coming up soon? Well, JCK is a couple of months away. We did post, I'm going to be posting some more videos about what's coming up from Vostok-Europe really soon, the new expedition underground Everest, if you didn't catch up about that from the Basel videos. So, oh, by the way, this is a t-shirt from the East Side Gallery, that was just such a cool trip. I'm telling you, that was just amazing. I was just saying on Facebook the other day, I feel so lucky to do what I do, and then the fact that what I do takes me to these really cool places around the world. It's amazing, and I enjoy sharing it with you guys, and I wish I could take all of you with me. But anyway, in the meantime, I'm Craig Hester with r2awatches.com, the Pramsiest watch company. Don't forget we're on Kickstarter, and a number of other and various and sundry titles that I don't deserve. And until next week, keep watching.